Welcome back to How I Deal, where we examine a single past close deal, how it played out that way, and provide some sales tips straight from the front lines that you can use in your deals today. My name is Taylor Dahlem, full cycle account executive, now content guy, and I'm joined by my co-host, Junior Latte, the sales Grinch here at Pickle. What's up, June?
It's episode 32. We're really leaning into the sales nicknames here. But the sales Grinch, as in I try to disqualify people as compared to qualifying them. For some reason, people just love it when they can't have it. You know what I mean? So that's what the Grinch is all about. Not really, but maybe give it a watch and let me know.
If anything, it's around December here. So, we're full Grinch at the moment. But a quick explainer for those who are tuning in for the first time. Each conversation, we chat through a single past deal. What that means is from start to finish, we want to know every aspect from when you saw them on LinkedIn for the first time, all the way to getting that closed, signed document and kicking off implementation.
Today, we've got Mor Assouline. He's done some really impressive stuff. He was employee number 1 and VP of sales at Practice Panther, a law tech company, which is pretty rare. He's a sales mentor with Bravado. Bravado is a community for salespeople, kind of like your LinkedIn, but specific to salespeople. He was a VP of sales for Akendo. Now he's running from demo to close, a training and coaching program for AEs. Mor, give us an interesting fact. Tell us about your role and the problems from demo to close solves.
Yeah, for sure. And not to toot my own horn, but I'm also a mentor at Techstars and Endeavor. Both are early stage like incubators for startups. But interesting fact. So my first job out of college, my first like real job or like a big boy job, was a sales job. And within the first day, the first hour of the job, I quit because I was petrified of sales, and I thought I would just take the job because that's what you're supposed to do. But I went to the boss and was like, this isn't for me. And then I avoided sales for like 2-3 years. So it's sort of funny that I got back into sales with vengeance.
You faced
back into sales and back into like coaching, account executives specifically. Awesome. Tell us about from demo to close. What problems do you help AE solve?
Yeah. So there's plenty of content online around prospecting and generating leads, but where I come in, it's what do you do when you have the lead on the hook? So when you're doing the discovery call, the demo, the follow-up, the close, the actual deal flow, how do you do it? What do you do? And so I built out demo to close FTTC, which is a university, which is a course, and has a coaching/training side to the business, where I work with AEs either directly or through the course through a group. We work on discovery, demo, follow-up, close. Part of it is like using like tonality and how to coach them on communication, soft skills. So that's all part of it.
Incredible. You're a super busy guy, Mor. Thanks for walking us through what you're up to and what demo to close solves. But we're fascinated with hearing how you do it, right? That you teach it. Now we'd love to hear kind of how you go about it. And that's the point of the pod. We'd love to hear what deal are you walking us through today?
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about a deal. It wasn't when I was a VP of sales or an AE at a software company. It was when I launched my business about a year ago. The reason why I'm bringing up that deal, number one, is because it's sort of recent. A year is pretty fresh. And number two, being a founder is more like enterprise sales, where it's less transactional. The deals are sort of creep in, and they slowly trickle in, and it's harder to close. It takes longer to close. So it's more of an enterprise deal. So I'm going to bring up a deal, one of my first deals that I closed. I can just start talking about it now if you like.
If I remember correctly, this is going to be like a B2B SaaS company. You're typically looking for Series A type companies. I guess, yeah, let's go into how you became aware about the company. And then I know that research is obviously a big piece here. So talk about that too.
Yeah, so I'll give you a little bit backstory. So I started my company around October, November of last year. I had cushion in the bank. But then I realized that I had a short runway before I have to dip into my savings. So I had cushion in terms of the business, but beyond that, I was like, I have to dip into my savings. I'm very sort of conservative with money. And so I didn't want to dip into the savings. And I also didn't want to get a full-time job. I wanted to do this. So I said to myself and my wife, we have 1 month for me to close 3 clients in enterprise dollars, which is, enterprise could be $40,000, $50,000. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. The spray and pray type of thing where I'm going to blast out 1,000 emails probably won't work. I need to be really specific here. What was it like? I think it was an Abraham Lincoln quote. You have had 8 hours to chop down a tree. I would spend 7 hours sharpening my axe. So it's sort of the same idea here. So I was like, okay, I'll spend the most time on the buyer persona research. So who do I know that I know really, really well? I know what the problems that they're dealing with. And when I do speak to them, they know that I know my shit. And so I was like, all right, B2B SaaS, Series A, because they have the funding. If there was a seed round, it'd be a difficult pitch. So Series A, they have the funding that potentially recently got a Series A in the last 12 months that doesn't have, either has a VP of sales that's hiring a lot of AEs, or it doesn't have a VP of sales that has AEs. The latter made more sense because it's like, who's managing the AEs? Who's managing the account executive? Either the founder or somebody else, but that was sort of like the target. And so I started doing research using LinkedIn and different websites like angel.co, et cetera. And you can do filter like based on how much they raised, and you can filter based on if they're hiring for AEs, and you can filter out. So I did like research like VP of sales in the search of the company, and I couldn't find anyone. So like, all right, there's clearly that's a gap there. And so I did this for a handful of and I say handful, like literally, I didn't have like 30 leads. I was only working with like maybe 10 that I was going to email. And so that was the format, the research that I was doing prior to shooting out the email.
We've talked about trigger points in the past on this podcast, and it seems like you were just like locked in on the ones that matter the most to you, being like the Series A. It's typically a founder, a CEO who is overseeing sales while they try to hire a head of sales or maybe like promote internally. Maybe in some cases you see like an account executive team lead, right? And he's or she has a team of 5 or 6. Maybe that's even like more of a goldmine for you because the AE is selling and trying to help, but they're not, a VP of sales themselves.
Yeah.
So it seems like the triggers here are super relevant and you've just got them locked in.
Yeah, there's a clear, I know if there's no VP of sales, but there is a sales team, then it's either or there's no sales team, let's just say, but the companies like have like a product, then it's either founder-led sales, or if they have a sales team, then it's founder-led coaching. And that's just a lot for a CEO. And so I know there's the pain there, so I can call out that pain on that email.
Pretty obvious.
My go-to is email. I don't necessarily default to cold calling for a couple of reasons. If you cold call me right now, even though now we know each other, my phone won't recognize you. It doesn't know that I know you. And so I'll either get a scam likely, or it'll ring with a phone number that I don't know about, but it'll keep it silent. And so cold calls, I think, are much harder to tap into nowadays, unless the person is expecting your call and has your number saved.
So let's move to that step then, right? Like you mentioned, you had a month to close a couple massive deals that would change the life of your company as well as probably your own life. How did you go about prospecting them if it's not a cold call, and how the hell did you keep that sales breath out of it that I would be so desperate, like, please sign up, please sign up.
And I also have like 2 kids, so I'm like, shit, I need this right now.
Yes, yeah. Like, how did you just keep your cool and write a targeted message without just begging?
Yeah, a lot of it, I had to work on my mental, like to not sound desperate through the email. But instead of spending 10 minutes on the email, I literally spent like an hour and a half on the email. Like writing really good copy for a website or a landing page, you spend a lot of time on it and then like get a couple of eyeballs on it. I did the same thing. And so I was like, all right, what can I look to within the email that would call out a problem statement, but won't be generic like every other salesperson. I noticed that, blah, 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 blah. Saw that you raised Series A, blah, 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 blah. So, and I wanted to make it sort of like an entertaining email at the same time and keep it short at the same time. And so if you want, I have the email open up right now so I can actually use the email. And I'll use the prospect's name as Taylor for the sake of demonstration. And I'll use the company name as Pickle instead of the real company. But the subject line, that's part 1. I was like, okay, that gets them to open up the email, not necessarily make a decision. So that's the first one. So the subject line was pickle // AEs. That was it. It was short to the point. And then the email, I'll read it verbatim. I'll say it was Taylor that I was emailing. It would say, I said, "Hi, Taylor." I'll make a disclaimer here. I read the job description of the AEs that they were hiring because I noticed they didn't have a VP of sales. They had AEs and they were hiring for account executives. So I read the job description for the account executives, and what I was looking for was anything that said discovery, demo, coaching, anything that I can speak to, like, yeah, that's exactly what I do. The first line of the job description said, "Did you know that lumber prices are outperforming Bitcoin?" The company itself was a construction management software company. And so that was their opening line of their job description. Like, all right, I'll use that as a hook if they use it as a hook for their JD, I'll use that as a hook for my email. So I said, "Hi, Taylor. I did not know that lumber prices are outperforming Bitcoin." Parentheses, read that through the job description. "Did you know that companies with dynamic sales coaching programs achieve 28% higher win rates?" So that was the first thing. So I used their hook and then I rehooked them with my hook. Then I put out a problem statement. The problem is, since more companies have gone remote, side note, I knew that they were remote because I saw the JD said remote, have gone remote, sales reps are receiving less coaching, mostly because of lack of bandwidth from leaders. Remember what I said earlier, that they didn't have a VP of sales, which means it was probably the CEO that was doing the coaching. That requires a lot of bandwidth. So I knew that was a pain point. What if I can get your reps to ramp up quickly, close more demos, and hit quota using a sales co-pilot? Would that be something you'd be curious about? That was the email. That was the first email that went out. That was February 9th at 12:30 p.m.
It's a great email. The piece that I think about the most within this email, and is something that I've had to think about more, is when you say, lumber prices outperforming Bitcoin, and then you reference where you found that piece of information, because they may have not themselves written the job description, right? Or sometimes people don't. I use the about section a lot, right? And if someone were to quote my about section, I might not remember everything that I wrote in there. So I would be like, "Hey, more X, Y, and Z," and then in parentheses, read that in your about section on LinkedIn, and just like quickly reference where I found that information so that they can recall back to the moment. And I think it brings full circle, all the research that you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I also love that you're using their own format, right? Like, it's a format that's hopefully the founder wrote, right? They're the ones trying to hire, but it's their own format, and you're not using it against them, but more so with them, which is really cool.
Yeah. And I think, when you're a kid, the way I was thinking about drafting the email and how I think about drafting any cold email, when you're a little kid, you would have like those like drawing notebooks that would have like little circles, like dots, and you had to connect the dots. And that was like this whole thing. So it'd be like a star. So it'd be a point here, a point here. That's the whole thing. So I'm looking for these different points or pain points. And then my job is to sort of connect the dots here. And that's how I think about emails. And that's why I think this email worked, because my assumption, my hypothesis was founder-led or AEs, no sales leader, founders doing all the research. They don't have the time. And so who's helping them? And so that's where I went into. Then I shot over a secondary email. I always send out a bump, and that usually goes out less than a week within the first email. So 2 days after the initial email. And that bump is just thoughts, ? And then that was on February 11th. So February 9th, I send out email. February 11th, I send the bump. And 2 days later, the founder responded back to me.
Just quick, on the first email, did they actually see that, or did the bump cause them to see it, or did they ignore it?
Good question. It's showing me that they did, but we're talking about almost a year ago. So
right.
But I don't know. Like, sometimes they don't. Like, I have emails of people that I expected to get their email, but because my inbox gets flooded, it gets buried, and so that thought will just bump it to the top.
Gotcha.
So it's possible they didn't see it, and then that thoughts. And I've seen that before happen with other emails. The secondary bump gets them to read the initial email.
And do you find like thoughts itself, when that's all it says, like it's a pattern disrupt, right? Normally it's like, "Hey, I was just gonna bump this up, like would love to hear about the XYZ, let's book a time," where it's just a very blunt Thoughts? Do you find
Yeah.
more success when it's like as simple as that, or what's the kind of the reasoning?
Yeah, I'm sort of like I like to test out different approaches. So I may test out, instead of thoughts question mark, I may say Taylor question mark.
Mhm.
Same
Yeah.
idea. But there's no point saying, hey, just following up to see if you got my last email, because the email itself is a follow-up.
Yeah,
There's no point
I
repeating
know
it.
you got it because you're seeing this one.
Yeah. As per my last email, those memes kill me.
Yeah.
Okay. So responds, shows interest, you book a discovery meeting. Tell us about the discovery process for you here.
Yeah, so the discovery, it was interesting. So I initially emailed the founder CEO. On the call, there was a secondary person that joined in. They were also an executive, not like a C-suite executive, but like sort of like a VP of marketing / sales. And so they jumped on the call. And one of the things I did was like ask them, like, all right, talk to me about. So one of the things I think is really important. We didn't talk about it before, but I'll mention it now. It's really important that the discovery questions that you ask to a lead is very contextual based on where that lead came from. So if it's an inbound lead, that means they're already showing high intent interest, and you can easily ask them like, hey, why are you interested in speaking with me? You can ask that question. But if you ask that question to a lead that you've cold emailed, they'll say, Mor, you reach out to us. And so one of the first discovery questions that I asked them was, hey, Junior, you probably get 1,000 cold emails every single day, and for whatever reason mine stood out. I'm curious, what about my email made you say, hey, let's jump on a call? And so I'm calling out the elephant in the room, which was, I've cold emailed you, and now I'm asking you, what about my cold email made you interested?
That's a great place to start. It's like the initial interest, right? Keep going. Not to interrupt you. Keep going.
No worries. And so what was I gonna say? I lost my train of thought. Yeah, so VP of sales / marketing, founder, CEO. Most of my questions are open-ended. I don't like to ask close-ended questions unless I want them to say yes or no. So an open-ended question is like that initial question that opened up. Whatever reason they give me, like, yeah, we have 6 salespeople right now, and we're just, we don't have the bandwidth to coach them and do this and do that. That's usually the first layer of like their pain, and it's usually an ambiguous sort of broad statement. My goal is to get them to like be really descriptive and really like share the crazy challenges that they're having. So I just dug a lot more. So I would say something like, when you say you have 6 AEs and you don't have the bandwidth, how do you mean? And then they just start talking about their day-to-day and what the problem is. There are 2 things that I was looking for specifically, that would be a red flag in their world, but a red flag in their world would mean an opportunity in my world, which was, I wanted to see if their demo win rates, number one, how many demos they're doing, because if they're not doing a lot of demos, then it may not be a fit. But if they're doing a lot of sales calls and discovery calls, then I come in a really good space. So I would ask them how many demos they're doing, how many calls they're doing. And then I wanted to know what percentage of their deals are they winning. For me, in my experience, when I've trained reps, the worst sales rep would close 50% of every sales demo. So that was my benchmark. So if they were closing 40 to 50, that's pretty good. If they were closing something like really depressing, like 10, 15, 20, then I knew there was an opportunity there. The secondary thing that I was looking for was if they had a sales playbook. So I asked them like, hey, what are your demo win rates on average in the last 6 months, 3 months, whatever it is? And it was between 10 to 20. And then the follow-up question I asked them was, where do you have the discovery scripts in the playbook or in the sales playbook, or how does that work? And their response was, we don't really have a sales playbook. And so there was two red flags. I was like, shit, it's a big problem for them, an opportunity for me to come help.
Yeah. Can you define a demo win rate? When you say demo win rate, is it I've had a demo and now we've converted to another meeting? Or are you thinking about like demo win rate as the demo is closed and they've signed a deal?
Yeah, demos closed and they signed a deal. It doesn't mean one call closed, demo, and then you close them on the call. That means you do a demo, you could do multiple demos. I guess for the sake of for everyone, call it a deal win rate. Okay. In that case. So they do a demo, there's maybe a couple of follow-ups, maybe 7 follow-ups in the 6-month period, whatever it is, and then they close. So out of all the deals out of all the demos that you've done, what percentage of those demos / deals have you closed?
Yeah. And they're sitting around this 10 to 20%.
Yeah.
That's right.
Because I specifically look at companies that generate majority of the revenue from the demos that they give. Demo heavy companies.
Do you
like Gong, etc., and all them, and Pickle, and all you guys all have demos. That's how you demonstrate the software. There's a PLG motion to it, but it's very demo heavy.
Do you care, like, when you're assessing the deal win rate, demo win rate, however we want to call it, like you said, it might be like a very quick turnaround and one rep could close a lot faster, whereas another rep, maybe they have a similar win rate, but it took them like 5 meetings to get there. Like, do you put weight behind those things when you're having those conversations? Does that matter as much too when it comes to like deal time?
It doesn't. Yeah, I mean, it matters. I mean, for the example that you were giving, let's say you have a rep that's closing faster and another rep that's closing slower, but they're both equally the same demo win rate.
Same amount.
But yeah. What I'd ask then is, what's the churn for rep A and rep B? Gotcha. So I would probably bet that the churn for rep A is higher than the rep for the rep B, because they may not be asking enough discovery questions and they're selling them on hype, coupons, whatever it is. Yeah. And they're closing them, but then they have crazy churn 30, 60, 90 days later.
Right. Because it took a little more convincing, right?
Yep.
They didn't hit the pain just correctly.
Well, they didn't use a discount as a crutch. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Fascinating. So this is not exactly a normal product demo, right? You're selling a service. Yeah. It's much different, but in the sense that the sales process and buying emotionally is similar. But what happens post discovery in this?
Yeah, so it's very, and I've realized throughout the last year and I was doing business, I'm like, this is very enterprise, because in enterprise, a lot of enterprise, they don't do the demo after just the first discovery call. Maybe they have multiple discovery calls, then they do a demo. So it's really enterprise strategic, so to speak. No demo. But I have an option. Do I show them a slide deck as like, let me tell you about my company and my pitch and what I'm offering you? Yeah. And so for the purposes of this, we'll call it a demo, but I'm not sharing software. There's no deck. I mean, I have a deck. I don't use the deck. I communicate with the prospect face to face or Zoom to Zoom. So no deck. I do have an Excel spreadsheet where I have like the math. So I have all my like discovery questions, like how many leads are you getting? What are conversion rates? How many of them are scheduled on a demo? How many of those convert and sales cycle, all this crap. And so I sort of ask them these discovery questions and I'm filling it in. It's important that I am telling them that I'm doing this, because I want to be really transparent that I am taking notes. I'll say, Taylor, if you see me looking at another screen, it's because I'm taking a lot of notes. And I have sort of a spreadsheet here that I'm plugging in some numbers to understand if I can even help you. And so I'll say that. And then so I have a spreadsheet on a separate screen, no deck, and I'm just communicating via Zoom.
So I want to shift the attention. We, in the beginning, were talking about what you did, because at first it was a founder or CEO who brought in a VP of sales. And I found this really interesting, but you shifted your mindset from selling the CEO to selling the VP of sales, and like emphasis on them because they're the ones who are going to feel the most pain from, the account executives not closing, as compared to the CEO who at the end of the day is going to detach and go on to, oversee other things. Talk about that mindset, because I think it's different here.
Yeah. So initially my intention was clearly it's the founder CEO that's having all this pain point. When they brought in that secondary person on the call, the person that was leading the conversation was mostly the secondary person, which was interesting. So I asked them about what their role was, and it was clear that the person that's managing the AEs was this VP of sales marketing, but it wasn't a true VP of sales. And so when I noticed that they took control, they were asking a lot of the questions, then I knew who the pain point was really resonating with. And so I shifted my attention to, instead of, let's say, doing 90% CEO, founder, and 10% attention to the VP, I'd switch it. And so I was talking to, asking a lot of questions to this person, and they were essentially my champion. And then the founder and CEO was a witness because they were on the call too. So my goal was to get the champion convinced that I can help. And so I knew when I end the call, they're going to have a meeting internally, and the founder would say like, hey, what do you think? And she could say something like, yeah, I really need this. I need this. This will help me so much more with other stuff that you, the CEO, have assigned me to do. And so I was selling the champion, which in turn would sell the CEO.
Yeah, I think it's really key to be able to shift your mindset away from like what we think of the ultimate decision maker, right? Like the CEO may be the person who's going to sign this thing, but the person to drive it home and feel the most pain, we need them on board more than anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have you done like a call? I've done a call, and when I coach reps, and they're talking to the decision maker, the founder, and on a software, and the founder is like, okay, well, I need to show this to my team because they're going to be the ones using it.
Yep.
So it's like who's the real decision maker here, the
Yeah.
team or right? So and why you've noticed like commercials, like early morning commercials before school, Junior, you probably see it. Your kids are like eating cereal, whatever it is. A lot of times they're putting cartoons, and the commercials are about these like different toys, like the car, the Hot Wheels, whatever it is. Why? Because they know the kids are watching it, and then they know the kids are going to go to their parents and then be a pain in the ass to the parents, wanting them to buy the gift. The commercials aren't for the parents, it's for the kids.
No,
Yeah.
kids are the ultimate champion.
The decision maker, the person that's buying the toys is the parent, but the decision maker is really the child. Same
It's
idea.
the freaking Nerf guns, dude. If I see another Nerf commercial, I'm going to lose my mind. Okay, so it's running smoothly. You've shifted your attention. You're driving the pain home. Are there any barriers that arise in this deal?
Yeah, big time. So it's a double-edged sword. I'm going after somebody that has a huge pain, a huge problem, which I can solve. But because they have such a huge problem, they're almost too busy to start solving that problem. So they just deal with the shit that they're dealing with. Personal story. Right now, I'm like really busy. I have a lot of administrative stuff that I'm doing that I need to like lay off, give to somebody else, and so I need to hire a VA. But I don't even have time to document what I need the VA to do. That requires a lot of time and thinking. I don't have time for that. So I'm too busy because I'm too busy because I'm too busy. So I knew that was going to be a problem for them, and it was a problem. Like you could tell, she's like, I'm doing this. I just don't have the time, and maybe we'll look at this next quarter because we're gonna end the quarter and all this crap. So it was really important for me to talk about the seamless onboarding to the point where it made it seem like they didn't have to lift a finger, where I do most of the work, 90% of the work. And so that was a hurdle, and I think that's a hurdle with a lot of people that are even selling software. If you're, maybe if you're selling Pickle to somebody, to a VP of sales, and it's a early stage startup. As an early stage startup, a VP of sales is doing 1,000 more things. They have less manpower. They don't have the funding to hire marketing and this and this and that. And so they're thinking about, well, how much time is it going to take me to even like sit down and like plan this out? And so talking about onboarding and what this VP of sales won't have to do is a really important FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt to address.
Yeah. It's really funny with the smaller companies. It's like, will I fully be able to utilize this thing? Like, I don't know if I'll be able to implement, it to its fullest. And then on the larger end of the spectrum, it's like, is this going to be a massive distraction getting everybody on board and trying to onboard this huge thing? And so like the two different mindsets almost coming down to the same friggin' problem. And it's
but I'll say this, it's really important. And I talk about this in my university and on LinkedIn and stuff, but you ever watch the movie 8 Mile with Eminem?
Yeah.
There's that last rap battle scene where Eminem goes, and they flipped the coin. Eminem was the first one to go up. Mm-hmm. And then pretty much his session of the freestyle, the first part of it was him calling himself out. I do live in a trailer with my mom, et cetera, et cetera. He was just talking about all the objections that this other person was going to talk about him. And so I knew that the objections in the mind of this VP of sales / founder and CEO was, we just won't have the time to even sit down and do this. So I proactively brought it up.
Yeah.
I would say something like, Junior, Taylor, I know that this is something that you want to do, but I would imagine that you're probably thinking, how the hell are we going to have time to do this? And they would nod, like, yes, that's exactly what I'm thinking. And so it's important to proactively call out the concerns that a prospect may have versus hoping that they would ask about it.
And I think to continue the 8 Mile reference here, the actual effect of bringing up those aspects beforehand, they're like, I've got nothing to say. Let's just do it.
They understand me. They know what I'm dealing
that
with.
much faster.
It brings a lot of credibility to you as the seller, right? It's like, okay, he actually works with companies like ours. He's bringing up the problems that I'm already thinking about, but haven't asked. That's a huge indicator that the sales rep like understands what is going to happen, what's going to take place. We've talked a lot about this in terms of like procurement and getting in front of all that kind of crap that you're going to have to go through at some point, right? And we're learning that some, maybe not the better reps, but thinking about it beforehand can make the deal go a lot smoother.
100%. And that approach also is how I did it for the cold email. I got into the mind of the buyer persona, and I used scenarios or language that they're dealing with also.
Makes sense. Mor, I guess quickly recap us the timeline, maybe how long it took, how many meetings, how many communications, emails, text, and then where you kept all that info.
Yeah. So part of this whole deal was like sort of miraculous, because I said to myself, I have 1 month left. So it was a 1 month sales cycle, or less than 1 month, call it.
Buzzer beater is what I would call it.
Yeah, buzzer, exactly. A buzzer beater, do or die kind of situation. 2 cold emails. The first one was like the well-crafted one, and the second one was just like a thoughts bump. And then we had 3 meetings. The first one was a discovery, which we needed to do part 2 of discovery. And then so the part 2 of discovery was the end of the discovery, and then sort of my proposal draft. And then the last one was we reviewed the proposal, and essentially they were ready to sign up.
That's awesome. Do you, I know this Excel sheet obviously plays a big role. Do you have any secret sauce on the way you organize or keep information?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a secret sauce, because the way I do right now is pretty unorganized, and I'm trying to revamp it. But I take obnoxious amounts of notes, and so I'll write notes on the prospect's tonality, what they're wearing, any specific words they used. So if I notice that they're constantly using the words like, I don't know, we have so much to do that it's really crippling us, I'll type in the words they said, the word crippling, and I'll use that in the language when we're talking. All the call recordings, I keep that there, because I want to review my calls to see what I did, what I didn't do, what I missed. And then action items, next steps, I save those as well. Awesome. But it's all over the place. Like right now I use Streak, I use Excel. It's not organized in a great way, which I'm going to consolidate it.
Yeah, maybe post consolidation we'll loop back to you too and see what you got. But for now, hit us with 3 tips any account executive can use to inch closer to close one from this deal, but also your sales career at large.
For sure. So these 3 things are applied to any sales role that you do, whether it's B2B, B2C, car salespeople, whatever it is. The first one is, don't assume that every lead is a fit. I think when you do that, you don't hype yourself up and set false expectations. And because of that, the way you communicate to the prospect comes out in a very confident way. So say something like, hey, Junior, like, I don't know, I appreciate you showing interest in this, but I'm not 100% sure that you are fit for our business. But that's the whole point of this conversation, to see if I can help you. And if I can't, I'll be happy to refer you to somebody else. That's a level of confidence that people want what they can have, and they're going to want to deal with you even more so. And it builds trust very quickly. So that's number 1. Don't assume every lead is a fit. The second one is take an obnoxious amount of notes. Take notes on like really like obvious stuff, like their pain point, and take notes on things that are very subtle. Maybe like, I can't see right now because your Zoom is minimized, but there's like something on the left side of your shoulder that's like a sign. Like, I'll take a note of that if I can see it. I'll write that you have an AirPod on one ear. I'll write like the tonality that you're using, the shirt that you're wearing, surroundings. I'll write all those things up, because I'll use that as part of my communication with the prospect. And the third one is, don't always ask for the sale, which in other words, asking for the credit card to do business with them. Ask for the close. So in asking for the close would be, let's just say this was our discovery call and you're a prospect and we don't have enough information for us to do business today. The close would be me booking you for a follow-up call. That's a close. So always ask for the close. Maybe that's a follow-up call. That's the next step. Or maybe that's getting Taylor or the CEO of Pickle to jump on a call.
Yeah. Mor awesome tips. It's been great chatting with you. If people have been meeting with Taylor, they would be like taking notes, obnoxious notes of his hats, right? Like, okay, it's a Chargers hat this time. It's a pickle hat this time. It's a Jazz hat. Like, it's all over the place, right? And you can embed that into the way that you work with Taylor to get him to, do some marketing spend.
Yes.
Just some thoughts for people trying to prospect the guy. Mor, thanks so much for joining today.
Appreciate it.
And just like that, another episode of How I Deal is in the books. Thanks, Mor, for joining us. Fantastic podcast today. And thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We will see you next time.